6th year sitting their exam in June 2026, let's continue on and talk about the Unit 3 chapter, Plant Transport. I know people aren't necessarily massive fans of plants, but the questions are incredibly predictable. Just take the time to understand what you're learning. Honestly, they are not as daunting as they appear. So make sure you already look at my plant structure and the leaf and all of the tissues video first, because now what we're talking about is the main transport systems in plants. Now, what do plants need to transport? Plants need to transport sugars, water and minerals predominantly. Okay, so if we talk about the transportation of sugars, that's called translocation. And then water transporting through the plant and being lost by evaporation through the leaves is called transpiration. Okay, so let's take a step back for a second. We know plants make their own food. They're autotrophic. Okay, where does that take place? That takes place in the leaf, and that process is known as photosynthesis. Plants make carbs, monosaccharides called glucose, and they make many of them, so they're stored as a polysaccharide starch. Now that's happening in the leaf, but other locations, for example the root hairs absorb minerals sometimes by active transport. They require energy for that. Now the energy is going to come from the sugars that the plant has made, because cellular respiration will break down the sugar and supply energy in the form of ATP. So we need to get the sugars from the leaf in the plant to other locations in the plant, for example the roots, the root hairs. So that must tell us that sugars are going to have to move from the leaf. Now how they do that is through a vascular tissue called the phloem. Phloem is living tissue. Phloem, if we look at the structure of it, we have phloem sieve tube cells, and what lies alongside them are the phloem companion cells. The sieve tube cells have end walls, which we can see. These are called sieve plates, and these have numerous hollows which will allow the cell sap, the sugar, to be transported, and that can happen up or down. So the transportation can happen in either direction. Now, the sieve tube cell is controlled by the companion cell, because the companion cell lies alongside it and has the nucleus to control the activities. So phloem is transporting sugar. What's transporting water then? Because we know water is needed in the leaf for photosynthesis to happen. We know water is needed for photosynthesis, but water is absorbed through the roots. So what's happening is water is transported in one direction only, through the vascular tissue called the xylem. And the xylem also transports minerals. Now, if we look at the xylem tissue at maturity, it is not living. There are no end walls. So essentially, all of the cells come together and just form a continuous hollow tube. And that's a long hollow tube with no end walls. And it's narrow as well. Now, the walls of the xylem, we have xylem tracheids and xylem vessels, depending on what plant we have. They are reinforced with a fibre called lignin, which will give the xylem its structure and support and prevent the walls from collapsing in on each other. Okay, so we have our xylem and we have our phloem. Xylem transporting water and minerals upwards only, phloem transporting food in either direction, known as translocation. And remember, sugars are needed by the plant because they will break down to supply energy. And it's the cell sap, the sugar and the water, that's going to be moving through the sieve tube cells. Okay, so the next important term that I want to describe is transpiration. Transpiration is water loss through evaporation through the leaf of a plant. Now, plants are going to naturally lose water because we said in the leaf structure video that they have pores underneath their leaf called stomata. They have to be open at certain times of the day because we need carbon dioxide to come into the plant for photosynthesis. So naturally what's going to happen is some amount of water is going to be lost through those stomata, those pores in the leaf. But in general, we want to try and prevent as much water being lost as possible, which is why we said the guard cells will open and close. They'll open during the day and close during the night to try and conserve water. However, light intensity is also going to affect the rate of transpiration. The brighter the light, the more photosynthesis, the more the stomata open and the higher the risk of water being lost. Then we have temperature. If we have a higher temperature, it supplies more energy to the water molecules. So as a result, they're going to move quicker and probably be lost a lot faster. So we do have factors that affect the rate of transpiration or the rate of water loss. So make sure you know that. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is the cohesion tension model, which is the model that describes the upward movement of water in a plant. So what's happening is we have water in the soil and then we have the roots. The soil has high water concentration, the roots have low water concentration. We know osmosis, the movement of water molecules across a selectively permeable membrane from a region of high water concentration to a region of low water concentration. So water is going to move into the roots. And the water molecules moving into the roots is going to build up root pressure. At the same time, the leaf is losing water molecules through evaporation through the stomata. Now, water molecules, and you can do this yourself, put a drop of water on the table in front of you and put another drop of water beside it, and you'll see they're attracted to each other. They stick together, okay? Which is why if you have a bottle of water and you turn it, no matter what way you turn it, the water molecules stick together because there's cohesion. They are attracted to each other. So as one water molecule is being lost, it's pulling the next one and pulling the next one, and it's creating a constant stream or column of water through the xylem, okay, because we're going upwards against the force of gravity. So we have root pressure, we have our transpiration stream. Now the xylem are narrow and hollow, which is going to maintain that pressure. We also have adhesion. The water molecules stick to the xylem wall, okay? Different substances, water and xylem. So that's going to create the constant column of water, which is going to allow water to move up the plant, okay? So that's the cohesion tension model, who you need to know the scientists responsible for, John, Jolly and Henry Dixon, or you can say Jolly and Dixon is absolutely fine. So that is the root pressure, the transpiration, the evaporation, the adhesion with the water and the xylem, the cohesion with the water molecules themselves, creates this constant column of water and is pulling water up against the force of gravity. So that is the cohesion tension model, and that is a lot of the plant transport chapter that you need to know, apart from the food storage and gas exchange, for your June 2026 biology paper.